Well, welcome everybody. This is Jack Leeser, and I'm here with the Coachman's channel, and this is where we share ideas about growth and change. And I have an exciting guest. She's a wellness and movement coach, Jenean. I know I'm going to get the name. Since I asked you about it, now I'm going to, mess it up. Cervantes.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. So she's here joining us, and we're going to go over some ideas on movement and the importance of movement and how how really movement has gotten you to where you are. I know for me, training horses and working with horses, that's really what it's all about is movement. Is horses are a prey animal, and so their instinct, they're a flight animal, so they need to move to survive. So I'm curious to kind of see how, if any of that kind of plays into what we're going to talk about here. But first, just how do we know each other? And I got to know you through the coaching class that we did, and you got to talking about some of your ideas, and we kind of connected up. And so playing with the idea of rock climbing, you took me out on my first adventure here a while back, and then a couple days ago doing it again. And we're going to talk more about that here as we get going, because we're going to be doing some stuff together. But Jenean, why don't you share a little bit about yourself, and I'd love to hear too your story.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. So as far as my story goes, yes, Jack and I did meet through the coaching process, and I decided to do wellness and movement coaching for a few different reasons. One of the biggest reasons is because I did not grow up with a lot of physical activity. Part of that was because I had pretty severe asthma,
Mm.
and I was in and out of hospitals, and I couldn't do a lot of physical activity. So there was constant sort of monitoring of my health when I was younger. I didn't really get to start doing a lot of physical activity until I was in middle school. And by then, it felt like I was really behind. So it was a process slowly of getting to a place where I had kind of let go of physical activity for a long time. And then as an adult, I had adult struggles and difficult times. I had a particularly rough time in 2013. And it was through that that I actually found movement and exercise. And that has completely transformed my life. And then being in the coaching process, which I love, that is another love of mine besides movement,
Hmm.
is coaching. And so it really just felt like a natural marriage for the two things to come together.
Well, how did I guess in the early stages, what kept you from the movement? Was the physical, or was it more parents going, okay, you really shouldn't do this?
It was a little bit of both. Physical activity would actually create asthma attacks in some cases, and then I also was allergic to a lot of things.
Mm.
So it was definitely health, and then on top of that, I think it became psychological. As with a lot of people find that, I think that there is often a barrier psychologically to doing what they really want to do, and sometimes it's very much so physical, and then it's coupled with the psychological feeling of, okay, I have limitations, I can only go so far.
Okay. When did you feel like you really kind of were like, this isn't what I I know there's more out there. I know I want more.
Mhm.
And when did that happen?
Uh, so I started to I started to actually find movement not even for myself. It was for my dog. And I would take my dog out for a walk. And my dog is a greyhound mix. So she walks were kind of not exciting enough for her. So I went from a walk to a run, really because she pushed it. And that was the beginning, in many ways, of pushing myself with running and with yoga. Um, I think that there, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about the three ways movement can change your life. I think that there is a way to go about movement that is healthy, and I think there's a way to go about it that can sometimes correspond with the other kind of things that are happening in your life that may be tense or may be hard. And so I think there's a way to ease into movement in a way that's challenging and that's healthy. So I didn't start to really get there until I found climbing. That being said, I think that the running and the yoga, that was the beginning stages, and then climbing really was my lift off.
So it sounds more like the initial, hey, I need to get my dog out there going is really what you got yourself out there and going. And so what were some of the things that started to change in you? You know, you started getting out there, started doing that. Were there any like, hey, you know, this is actually, I'm feeling better, or this is improving, or were there any of those sorts of things going on?
Definitely. Yeah. So confidence is huge, and believing in myself and having a lot of vulnerability. Anytime we try something new, there's a vulnerable process that's happening. And climbing not only was very new for me, but it's also something that takes a great deal of physical strength, and you're calling upon all parts of your body to really try to just get up this one thing, this one climb.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, you experience that. So there's a lot of things that take place, and one of the reasons I particularly like climbing is because it challenged me not only physically but mentally and spiritually, and that has been uh, something that has transformed my life. I've let in all kinds of things. I've let in people. I've let in new experiences. So yeah, it's something that was started with climbing, but it also manifested itself in all these different parts of my life.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of making me think of, we think movement is just this physical thing, or it's just going to benefit us. You know, we all know we should get out there and exercise more and do more there because it's going to help us physically. You know, maybe it's to lose weight, maybe it's to get stronger, you know, whatever it might be. But what I'm hearing you say, there's, you know, more things there. That's, you know, it's the emotional, the mental, maybe even the spiritual.
Yes, yes. And like I said, with the three ways movement can change your life, I definitely will get more into that. But it's something that wasn't just external. There was a lot of internal growth taking place over, gosh, I haven't even been climbing that long, over the past year and a half. So,
Okay. Well, I'd like to kind of go back even a little bit earlier, because you said you kind of started with the dog,
mm-hmm.
getting that going. What was it? You know, what were some of the changes right there? Because there had to have been some initial things that kind of got you going, and I'm just trying to lead in so people can go, okay, you know, this is, you know, somebody who wasn't moving that much, And now I'm getting out there and going. And what were some of those changes you're talking about, if it was physical and psychological?
Yeah. So when things were difficult, I think when it felt like things in my life were falling apart or they were very hard, it was like, for this time, for these moments, I can do this one thing. I can walk my dog. I can do that. I can, and then walking turned into running. And then running around the block wasn't enough. Then I had to run into the next neighborhood. And then I wanted to run, over some, then I wanted to run it as over some hills that I knew were gonna affect my legs a little bit and be harder. But then they became a challenge, and they became a nice challenge. So what felt unmanageable turned into manageable, and what became manageable turned into a new challenge, and then that challenge became another challenge, and that challenge became another challenge. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and it, what I'm kind of hearing too is there's almost like there was maybe addiction's not the right word for it. Is kind of like, hey, I just completed this. Now I need more. I want more.
Yeah, it was also I think it was also a process of confidence too that was taking place. Of uh, I thought I couldn't run this far. I thought I couldn't get out of the neighborhood. I thought that I would be afraid I wouldn't know how to find my way back if I ran too far. I do have a problem with directions, by the way. So there was these battles that I was overcoming psychologically as well as physically, and continuing on anyway.
Hmm. Hmm. That's really cool. And so the just expanding, you kind of got to where you were getting out there, moving more and more and more,
Mm-hmm.
and then that led you into the rock climbing.
Yes, yes. The rock climbing was introduced to me in, I think it was now about a year and a half ago, and I immediately was like, nope. I don't want to have anything to do with this. This is too much responsibility. Belaying was part of that responsibility, someone else's life being in your hands. And then the other part of that responsibility was that, oh my gosh, everyone's watching me climb. And the person who's belaying me is watching me climb. And then these other people are waiting to get on the route, and they're waiting for me to finish. And what if I don't finish? So there was just, so many psychological barriers with climbing that I was not ready for. And I think I let it go for about 3-4 months before I went back out there again. And then when I went back out there again, I was kind of like, I had this fighter energy, and I was kind of like, I'm going to show them I can do this, blah, 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 and that kind of thing. So yeah, it did not go successfully my first time. In fact, I think I had a few breakdowns. I was like, no, I can't do this. And then I went back, and then I came back with that kind of fighter spirit of like, I'm gonna show people I can do this kind of thing. And now it's so not about other people at all. It is about me.
Well, what made you actually come back? I mean, because it sounds like it was a pretty fearful thing. Was it just the idea of, hey, I'm going to show? So is it, I'm going to show myself or show these people, or was it something totally different?
You're a good coach, Jack, asking the right questions. So it was again that I had gotten to a difficult place in my life. And again, it was that I was going through a breakup at the time. It was difficult, and I wanted to go back to something I had tried to do and wasn't able to do before. And it was part of a healing process for me to go back out there and to try
Mm.
again. And it became nothing but healing. It continues to be a healing process for me. It's just under different circumstances now.
Tell me more, if you will, on that. Because I mean, if somebody was watching this and they're going, okay, she's saying, rock climbing's healing her,
Mm-hmm.
it would be like, what's going on there? How's that happening?
Okay. So I imagine that some people have probably experienced this too with yoga, because I also experience it with yoga. But like I said, I really enjoy the aspect of climbing that's mentally challenging, because it is sort of a puzzle with your body and having to figure it out, and kind of like playing chess with your body in a way. So you're being strategic, you're carefully thinking about your moves. But there is also an aspect to climbing that, I mean, you can call it heady, you can call it emotional, you can call it whatever. But there are times when I go to climb after a hard day. And if it's been a long work day, if it's been an emotional day, I can feel it. I can tell my body responds to that. And so climbing has been a way of checking myself and asking myself what I need. And it's also been a process, like I said, of vulnerability and transformation, physical and emotional transformation. But the way in which it continues to be a healing process for me is by having a very strong bond with myself, trusting my body, trusting others to believe me. So it's not just a trusting experience for me to do my job and to get up on that climb and to do the best I can, but also to put myself in another person's hands and to communicate with them well. And if I'm having a particularly hard day, communication can be difficult, and building myself up can be difficult. Those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I find it interesting too, as you're saying you're going out after maybe a hard day, already working, and then that you're going out, rock climbing's, there's some physical, you're working fairly hard at this, so you have to come with some energy there, but it sounds like the rock climbing's actually giving you something, giving you that energy, or maybe it's releasing something.
Yes, that's very astute. Absolutely. Both happen, because when you're able to let go, you're able to let in, as we'll talk about.
Cool. Yeah, well, let's segue into that, because that's part of what you were is like, okay, what is your core message here? And you're talking about letting go, letting in, and lifting up. So what does that mean?
Okay, so I want to be clear too with what we're talking about in the 3 ways that movement can change your life. Is I'm talking about sitting here, you and I, we're moving, we're breathing, we're fidgeting, we're moving, right? So I'm not talking about just moving. I'm talking about moving intentionally physically, and moving intentionally through life. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about the letting go part, because I think the letting go part is essential to the other parts. So we spend a lot of time talking about, or trying, I guess, maybe not talking about, but we spend a lot of time, I think, as individuals trying to avoid pain, trying to avoid situations that are going to bring us pain, and trying not to think about our faults. Because when we let that part of ourselves in, we can be really harsh and really hard on ourselves. So I think the key there with the letting go is to hold ourselves accountable, while at the same time being able to let go of shame, and whatever that means for us, letting go of mistakes, letting go of the past. So when I say let go, what I'm really saying is forgive. forgive yourself.
Mm.
How does that translate into movement? Well, there's a number of different ways. I have a yoga instructor that I love. His name is Sean in Austin. And he has us do an exercise in the beginning of yoga class. And it's to put, and a lot of teachers do this, put your hand on your heart center and put your other hand on your belly, and to do breathing exercises and maybe do a body scan. But one of the things he does differently is he asks us to be very intentional with our movements and to think about the way in which we hold a loved one's hand, or the way in which we might touch our partner or our spouse. And that he wants us to use that same loving, affectionate touch on the heart center. And for a lot of people, it makes them cry because it is a forgiveness touch. It's something very loving and very forgiving. And it's not something we always think about when we are, touching our own arm or our own hand or our own heart. So that's one way. And also, I just think that forgiveness is the way that letting go translates physically is soft, it's slow. It's whether that's getting out of bed calmly and slowly, or sitting and meditating and feeling your breath. Those are intentional movements, thoughtful movements. So that's kind of the let go part of it.
Well, and that as you're talking about that, so my background is training horses and working with horses before getting into the coaching here, and it's mostly all about movement. Is getting you're trying to get the horse to be able to do what you want, and much of what you were just talking there about is letting go. Is we're trying to get the horse to release and get relaxed into the movement, because a horse can go out there and do movements, but if they're in this tense place, it's all tense and hard to do. But as soon as they let go and get soft and melt into it, the range of motion, the ability to do whatever it is you want goes way up, and the exhilaration of that just really kicks in. So that's cool. You're kind of bringing that into the human and just helping us to let go of all the stuff we put on ourselves.
Yes,
is what it sounds like.
And what you're saying absolutely translates, because then we're able to let in, right? Once we let go, we can let in. We can let in the present. We can let in all kinds of things. And so practicing letting go, practicing the release, practicing that forgiveness, like our life depends on it, because it does. Forgiveness is so important. And I think it's really essential to this process of letting go and practicing it daily, practicing it more than once a day if possible, because we don't realize what we carry until we feel its release.
Now, this is maybe a little bit different direction, but I'm just curious your thoughts on, it seems like with horses, they'll hold that mental tension they have will translate into their body, into physically. And in order, sometimes you have to change them mentally, but sometimes you have to release the physical to change the mental.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at.
Are you finding the same thing for us?
So, for me, it's both. I do feel like sometimes it's hard to focus on your breath when you haven't had, for example, if you have a lot that's pent up, a lot of energy that's pent up, then focusing on your breath or sitting is going to be very hard, right? And so I think that it's about each person's individual energy and how much they are gathering or releasing in any given day, in any given moment, based on what their needs are. And it's about awareness, and it's about listening. So I think we need to take the time to listen and to release. And for some people, that letting go may not happen until they have physical activity. It may not come first. It might be that they have a physical movement that's explosive or that's intense, and then they're like, oh, I can breathe, you know. And that certainly was part, I think, of what happened for me over time with the running and the walking, until I got more and more to a place where I was able to let things in, because I did have a lot of energy that needed to be released. But I think it's about knowing yourself and kind of knowing what you need.
Mm-hmm. So it's letting it go, forgiving ourselves, and then being able to let some things in,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to receive.
Yes. And there's a number of ways in which, you know, the letting in can translate. Like I said, in my beginning process, it was 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to spend 15 to 20 minutes a day walking or running. And for someone else, that can mean something completely different. That can mean, you know, that can mean stretching. That could mean whatever it is. Could mean running, like jumping rope or something like that. So I think that it's about carving out some time to let something in. My new let in right now is having new vulnerable activities. So I'm great at climbing, right? I mean, I don't know, great. Like, I'm not one of the best climbers in the world, but I know that this is my strength. So how about doing stuff that's not my strength? How about putting myself in a room with people I've never met before, an instructor I've never had before, and try doing kickboxing or boxing or surfing, or what else have I done? Skiing. There's just so many ways in which I just make an absolute fool of myself all the time. And it's awesome because I learned so much. And you know, I kind of lovingly refer to myself as a vulnerability junkie now, because I have this capacity to put myself in new situations, and I would not have done that in a million years before. So it's been a whole internal growth process, and through putting myself in these very uncomfortable, vulnerable positions, I'm letting in all kinds of things. I'm letting in new people, new places, new experiences, and new possibilities for myself and for my life.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that ability to just get out there and do something out of the ordinary, and like you say, let that in, let that be able to come in without holding on to it. But if you're holding on and you're not forgiving yourself, you're going to be judgmental of yourself and the other people around you. So that's
Right.
cool.
Right. So, you know, if you don't have something, what I would say to people is, if you don't currently have something that's physical that you're bonding with, like you were talking about earlier, that sometimes maybe some people need that release of that tension that they're carrying inside themselves, and it manifests itself in a physical way first, and then they're able to calm and listen to their breath, and whichever it is for people, but find the way in which you are able to be present with your body, and have that and do that and be consistent with that. And then you can let in, you know, these other things, these other possibilities, and, you know, magic happens.
Cool. So what's lifting up?
So, and the last thing I wanted to say about the let-in is that that it's really interesting too, I think, how that through the vulnerability process is where we find our strength. And so then that brings to kind of the lifting up. And the lifting up is really sustaining that strength. So you tried something new. So you did something new. So you started consistently, right? And you picked your activity and you stuck with it. And the next part of that, to sustain that, is to lift yourself up. And obviously, as a climber, that has literal meaning for me. But this can be, this can be so many different things. Encouragement is huge, and being able to reward the work that you've done and how far you've come and the process that you went through in order to get there is huge. And that can be affirmations. It could be writing affirmations on your mirror. I've seen a lot of people use that as some kind of part of their process. They see it first thing when they wake up in the morning. It could be carrying around a bandana around your wrist when you're climbing, or when you're in yoga, or whatever it is, that just kind of reminds yourself a little tag, to love yourself and to keep going. It can be, it could be wearing your favorite tights. It could be so many things in your classes, or when you go out to run, or whatever it is. So I think that it's about encouraging the process as you go and encouraging the steps, because markers are very important. Knowing when you've reached part of your goal, or some of your goal, or your very first goal, you've come a long way, and that is to be celebrated, not just by yourself, but by the people around.
Yeah, I'd like that, because it's so easy for us to pick at ourselves, to go, oh, I didn't do well, or I'm not good at this, or not good at that. Like you're saying, getting out there and doing new things, and being able to be like, oh, I just made a fool of myself. But the amount of things that you learn from that is really profound in so many ways. So this is cool, of just lifting yourself up. But how do you see others in that role
Of lifting up?
Yeah.
That I think that there are a lot of activities that maybe don't involve other people, but I think you can also create physical activities that involve other people to help. So if you are, let's say you're walking and you find a friend in your neighborhood to walk with you, let's say, and you guys encourage each other. Let's say you're climbing, your fellow climbers, your belayers are the cheerleaders of life when it comes to climbing, and they are just going to be like, you're doing awesome, you're doing great, you're almost there, you have a right foot here, you're doing good, so that's super important. A person can tell you that you're doing great. It's one thing for them to tell you, it's another for you to be able to accept it, right? So accepting someone else's love for you, or receiving their compliments, telling you you're doing awesome, or I can't believe you got that move, or let's just go another block or another mile. That is the part where you come in and you're accepting the encouragement, and you're lifting yourself up via acceptance.
Cool. I like it. And, it's a little bit a different direction, but I think it's important to, you're really talking about the people that support you, that lift you up. And there's people out there that really are on the other end, that are kind of pulling you down. They might be hanging on your leg as you're trying to climb up the wall. And so it's being aware of those people and kind of getting rid of that too. But
you're not going to want to call your homie that's a hater, right? You're not going to want to call that person to go walk with you.
Yeah.
You're going to want to call the person who's going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that, you're amazing. You're going to want to call that person. And being intentional with the people that we choose have around us in life, but especially when we're doing something very vulnerable and physical, and that requires strength and mental, emotional, and physical strength on our part. It's so important to be choosy, and also with ourselves, to choose the right moments. We don't want to try to run 10 miles at the end of a 10-hour day. And we don't want to put expectations or pressure on ourselves that we can't, or that we know is going to be difficult for us on a particularly emotional or trying day. So also balancing your expectations, listening to your body, and being able to reward the small things is so important. Going back to that, like listening to your breath and scanning your body, and seeing where you're at today. That's really why I put that at the front, because I think that that's such an important part of the process of getting involved in movement, is checking yourself and seeing where you're currently at, and then challenging yourself appropriately based on that. Each day, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different every moment.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So somebody's watching and they're like, okay, she's talking about rock climbing and running and, all these changes that are taking place. But I don't know anything about rock climbing. I don't, you know, don't do it. And I was that person up to a couple months ago too. And what can they do? What are some things? Because I'd really like people to actually leave with some ideas that they could use or maybe start to implement. That there are some action steps that people can leave with. So what are some ideas somebody can start to incorporate movement into their life?
So if they don't have any at all, right?
Yeah, hopefully all of us have some type of movement going on, but they know they want more. We all know that we should be moving more, unless you're some master at everything. But how do we go about getting started with that?
The first thing that comes to mind that I would say is turn your brain off. Is to not listen to your mind and the parts of your mind that tell you it's too hard, I can't do it, I've never done anything like this before, there's no way. Just go. Just go. If there's a class that you've been wanting to try, if you've always wanted to, and it doesn't have to be rock climbing. If you've always wanted to go to a Pilates class, if you've always wanted to try surfing, there are meetup groups. There are a lot of free things that are out there too, that don't necessarily involve having to be highly skilled or highly trained. Not that if you're doing something dangerous, you shouldn't seek out experts, but I think that if there are classes that are being offered where it goes in line with your schedule, and you just feel like, oh, I don't know who's going to be there, and these people are going to be watching me, and so what? They're going to be watching and they're going to be there, but the person that really loses in that situation every time we choose to say no is us. And we're missing out on our own experiences because we're afraid. And I think, and that was me too. A lot of me for a long time was me. I'm also I used to be in volleyball when I was younger, and I was a very emotional athlete. And if I had like a rough day, I performed differently. And so that's something I've had to work on and to check myself with. So I think it's just about getting out there and trying. And even if it doesn't go well, and even if you feel really, like a fool or weird or dumb about it, you go out and you try again until you don't feel that way anymore. And it takes practice. Vulnerability, just like any sport, just like any chin up or pull up or whatever it is, it takes practice. And that is the hardest part. And once you get through that, you can do anything.
Cool. Um, how does humor play into this?
Humor?
Yeah.
Oh, not taking yourself too seriously, for sure. That's hard for a lot of people, and me too. Yeah, so laughing a lot at yourself and being willing to not take yourself too seriously. Loving yourself, I think, is part of being able to laugh at yourself. And when you can say, okay, I tried, or someone's making fun of me, or I'm making fun of me, that says that you're able to relax and enjoy the moment, and to be present with the moment. And play is a part of that, you know.
Cool. Cool. I think we have a few people on, so if any of you have any questions for Jenean, just put them in the chat area there, and we'll get to those. So getting out there, what I'm hearing is just getting out there. Whatever you're thinking about you wanting to do is just go out there and start playing with that, and really just do what you can. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
You know, and do what you enjoy.
Meet yourself where you are, do what you can, and try. And maybe it's not all the whole class, maybe it's a video at home, but I think getting out there and having the experience is important. So so working yourself up is fine, but I also think that to let go of the thoughts that come in and to just go out there and give it a shot is the best thing you can do for yourself.
You know, and I'm really liking what you're saying too about the idea of, I mean, it really is more than just the physical act of going and doing the exercise or the movement. It is those mind games we play with each other. You know, it's like, well, I'm not that good at this, so I'm not gonna do that because somebody might see me, or I might not be able to do it, and so I'm gonna let myself down.
Or we don't have control. So we love the things where we have control because we know what to expect. We know what the parameters are. We know what that looks like. We know what that feels like because we do it all the time, and we become masters at that area of our life or that physical activity. So doing something that requires us to feel like a child or to feel vulnerable and to feel exposed is so hard. So yeah, I mean, I get it, but the most growth happens during that time.
Well, and that's what we're all about here. That's what the Coachman's channel is all about growth and change. And it's when you're in that little bit of anxious, or you're not quite 100% sure about it, that's when you're growing, that's when you're stretching, that's when you're getting out there and you're changing, you're making some of those changes. So Jenean, I've got a few closing questions that I'd love for you, and if there's anybody else who's got any questions, let us know. But so first off, where can people get a hold of you?
So people can get a hold of me on my website at iMoveCoaching.com. They can also get a hold of me via Instagram at Reconnect to Yourself. All one word, Reconnect to Yourself. And I'm pretty active on there. I try to post about every other day, and then people can direct message me through that. My website is up. It is still in some beginning early stages, so be kind. But that is available, and you can contact me through there as well.
Cool. What else? We got the rock climbing thing coming up here, but what else you got going? What else could people look forward to doing with you?
Yeah. So I have a few different workshop series that I offer. A relationship-based workshop I will also incorporate some partnership kinds of coaching as well as activities. So, like I said, there's a lot of communication, trust, those kinds of things come up with movement and physical activity. So, I try to incorporate that into and see some parallels with relationships. That could be through acro yoga, it could be through climbing. Those are both partner based activities. Leadership workshop that I offer as well. I've done that with some businesses and it's gone really well. It's about aligning our values. And we also will have some movement-based activities for that too. I'm all about creating an experience and kind of allowing us to step outside of the mental part of ourselves that kind of rerun different thoughts in our head and reasons why we can or can't do things. Get into the physical, get into your body, be present, and then see what you can do, and then see where you're finding those struggles and how that parallels with other aspects of your life. A female empowerment workshop that I offer. Hey ladies. And then there's also this climbing workshop that we're doing that I would like to offer once a year. So that's kind of what I got going on.
Cool. Awesome. Well, very good. So what does growth and change mean to you?
Ooh, asking the tough questions at the end. Okay. Growth and change, vulnerability, like I said before, that comes up. It means ever evolving, ever changing, acceptance, and sitting with acceptance. And I think that when we accept things as they come in that present moment, then we're able to really listen and really listen to our inner voice, and then choose the next path and choose that next evolution of growth and change. So for me, it's about vulnerability, challenging yourself, recognizing that there's acceptance, that it never stops, and that what you're struggling with now will not always be the same struggle. That kind of ever present, the constant is change type of thing.
Awesome. I like it. All right. So the last question, this is the world stage question. You're standing on the world stage and you have a microphone that's going out to every person on the planet. What are 2 pieces of advice that you would give to everybody?
I would say listen to yourself and love yourself. I think those are 2 really important things. Honor your intuition, and the loving yourself part, it takes time, and it's never a finished thing. There's never a time when you're like, okay, I love myself enough and I'm done. it's a process, and there are some days when we lose that battle and some days when we win it. So surrounding yourself with positivity is good, but being that positivity for yourself and others is even better.
Awesome. I like it. Thanks so much, Jenean. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
So much great information. So look forward to coming up here in the next few weeks.
Yes, and we have some updates on the website for
yes, I didn't. Go ahead and, like I say, there'll be some links here below on, the upcoming rock climb. So go check that out and look forward to having you there, seeing you there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Thanks, Jenean.
Bye.